There we go. Okay, so you can see the labia majora, the outer lips, bigger, major, and then minora, smaller, thinner. But the thinner inner lips contain blood vessels and nerve endings, as I said, really important for arousal, and also that lubrication that occurs when somebody is aroused. A few other things here, the clitoris, really dense bundle of nerve endings, right? The clitoris has one function. Does anyone know what it is? One function and one only. Yeah, pleasure. You got it. So it's funny because throughout history, and we watch some of those documentaries, people like oh yes, the clitoris is that Greek statue, like I've never been there, postcards of it, or stuff like it should be acknowledged in passing but not dwelled upon. Kind of funny like statements about this part of female anatomy. The only function that it has is this dense bundle of nerve endings is pleasure. Right now, some people don't enjoy that high level of pleasure, but it tends to be a very very common part of orgasm for a lot of women, depending on the person. But it is a very thick bundle, right? You can see up at the very top up there, it's often covered with what we call the clitoral hood or the prepuce, which I didn't make you draw on your picture. A few other things here, the urethra is the opening for where urine would pass, right? So we have the vaginal opening, and then we have the urethral opening. So urine passes from the bladder. And then let's see if there's anything else. Couple other things here. The hymen, which isn't on this picture, but I'll talk about here. Every woman, when they're younger typically, has a small little flap of skin that covers their vaginal opening called the hymen. And the first time that they insert like a tampon or a finger or have intercourse, for example, oftentimes there's a little bit of bleeding that will happen, a little bit of spotting or bleeding because that area ruptures, right? So it's a very thin flap of skin that covers the vaginal opening. Interesting historical significance for the hymen, right? What they used to do for young women to check if they were still virtuous or still a virgin is they would have somebody inspect them to see if the hymen was still present. They would have them put their legs up in like stirrups and they would do a quick inspection. If the hymen was missing, it was thought that they were no longer a virgin, which could affect their ability to get married and so on. Really kind of imperfect system as the hymen can rupture on its own. Sometimes it just ruptures. Sometimes it's from, like I said, inserting an object or even something like a tampon could be the item that does it as well. But it's this very little thin flap of skin that tends to sometimes be used historically to see if someone was a virgin or not. One other thing here, the perineum, I'll write it up here. The perineum or perineum, I've heard it both ways, is this thin flap or area of skin between the vaginal opening and the anal opening. Men have a perineum as well. It's a very like smooth area of skin. I'll just say smooth and sensitive skin. If you've ever heard of, sounds so awful, I'm sorry to put it out there, but like if a woman ever tears during childbirth, this is the area that would tear. Okay, so if someone ever has like an episiotomy, or you've heard of someone like tearing or ripping, when a baby is born and they're coming out of the vaginal canal, their head is obviously quite large compared to the size of the canal, which stretches, but this little thin area of skin can sometimes rip. Lots of massaging and like techniques that can be done to prevent that, that we know a lot more about now. But that's where the perineum is. That was the one other space that some people struggled with.
How do you spell perineum?
You consider it P-E-R-I-N-E-U-M. Perineum. I've heard it said those things a lot. So those are all the structures of like external anatomy, things that you can see on the outside. There's obviously internal structures as well. Yeah. Are you sure? You sure?
Yeah.
Okay. I'll ask you one more time. All right. I don't mind. I've had the most random questions asked in here, and I kind of like it, so I don't mind. Okay. Not to open the door, but yes, it's open always. Yeah. Yeah. Right. Yeah, it's really interesting because it used to be that women would kind of swap more, right? When they gave birth, it was more of like a vertical, like process. But women also had a lot more complications, were more likely to die during childbirth. So there's kind of pros and cons to both. A lot of like newer labor methods actually have people in a little bit more of an upright position. Where they have like handles almost in front of them that they can like use to push with. There's a lot of like stretching and like pre-labor exercises that are done to prevent stuff like tearing. But yeah, we've come a long way, but we kind of ignore some of the things that worked, but then they worked, but there were a lot of complications too. So it's tricky. Every hospital does it a little differently. There's a lot more alternative ways to give birth now than we used to. Yeah.
This is probably a good question, but I've seen stories of women talking about how their husbands want them to have an extra stitch after childbirth. Is that actually like doing anything?
An extra stitch for
so their religion is like tighter.
Yeah, so what can happen after obviously giving birth to a baby? You're talking about very large like item coming out of the vaginal canal, right? And so what happens is rather than a stitch, there's exercises like Kegel exercises. There are things you can do to actually retighten the canal afterward. And oftentimes when a baby is quite large, it is something that women almost have like a physical therapy for, right? My nephew, 13 pounds, 6 ounces. He was a big kid, man. That's a big baby. Might give you perspective. One of my twins weighed 5 pounds. Like that's like 3 almost of like my twin daughter. But like so afterward, there's a lot. She had to go to physical therapy to actually learn Kegel exercises to tighten the vaginal canal, which it'll do on its own. Rather than like a stitch or something like medical like that, it's usually exercises because it is a muscle that you can actually train and retighten as well. Was there another hand? Yeah. Of a water bird? So the interesting thing is it's thought to be less harsh to the baby. So the baby comes out of water into water. And so it's thought to be a milder transition. It's typically done in a very like sterile environment. It almost looks like a giant hot tub. If you will, that the water and everything are very like sterile. It's more of a personal preference. It's considered an alternative birth method because it's thought to be less like harsh for the baby. Obviously, you can't ask them, but you know, that's the thought, right? Is that like it's gradual and like home rather than like coming out into like bright light and cool. Yeah.
So what's the introitus? Because I don't think I've.
Sure. So the introitus is just the opening to the vaginal canal.
Oh. Okay.
Right. So it's the spot where it opens up into the vaginal canal. Right. So I mentioned a moment ago that we have that like every vulva is different. Okay, so I have some pictures because I know you can handle it, right? Or I'm saying you can handle it, right? All right. So I just found some images of different vulvas, right? And this was a very dangerous Google search to do, I will tell you. I also got in trouble for this. I like getting in trouble periodically, right? So again, you can see the presence of hair or no hair. Lips being of different sizes, right? So every vulva is different, whether we're talking about coloring or size of lips, hair, no hair, and so on, the thinness or thickness of those labia, but an incredible amount of variety. And age obviously plays a role in that, and preference for like appearance plays a role in that as well. But just to put that up there, you can look forward to or dread the one for male anatomy, right? Great. So in terms of internal structures, before we get here, I dread the male anatomy, just a touch. It's funny anyway. But for internal structures, before we talk about these, I want you to come up with, like I mentioned, we use a lot of slang. Okay, we're going to do this a couple of times in here. Because it's important to know the proper terms, but it's kind of entertaining to go over the song anyway. So let's do it. So what I want you to do with your group that you were with earlier, and you're not turning this in, but just jot it down so you can share. I want you to come up with all the slang terms that you can for like vagina or vulva, like female downstairs, female lower, female anatomy, right? So vagina, vulva, all the slang terms you can. You are welcome to look up online if you need some help, if you get stuck. But get a good list going, and I'm hoping you'll share. I'll give you a few minutes And we'll go from there. So write it down so you don't forget. Yes, a lot of freedom.
How's that? That's how it's going. Yeah. I feel like I already did. Oh, I hate this shit. Pussy was. What else?
I literally have never seen anybody.
Wait.
That's good.
Wait, are we supposed to set up all the way?
Yeah.
No.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I don't think he's.
Okay, who's your, oh, Fox, I love Fox. Oh, that's a lot. That's your spot. That's what?
Yeah, it's. Why? Yes.
Go slide.
What the fuck?
I'll give you another minute or two and I'm gonna.
You're a good guy. Oh, I don't know.
Wait, this is just for ourselves, right? So we can just like throw it away afterwards?
Oh, yeah, you're not sending me.
Yeah.
It's a fun book.
Have we exhausted our?
A big deal.
Have we exhausted? So I have to tell you, you're gonna do this for male anatomy, you're gonna do this for sex, you're gonna do this for masturbation, so be thinking about it, you know, like, be thinking about it in the back of your head. So does anyone wanna read anyone willing to read their list? Okay, go for it.
Alright, number one, we got flappy giblets.
What?
You started out strong, right?
We got beef curtains.
What? That was so crazy.
We got the JJ. We got hoo-ha, pussy, puss, hunt, muff, badge, tutor, cooch, smash, beaver, gash, fox, twat, yodi, and camel tail.
All right, very good, very nice, very nice. Like, can I tell you a funny story?
Yes.
Yeah. Finally, yes, that's all I need to know. But in college, I went to a Japanese restaurant with two friends of mine. It was my partner and myself, and these two other women, and we went out to a Japanese restaurant. And my two friends, super sheltered, like incredibly like sheltered family. Like they were together, a lot of struggle with that, but they were very, very deeply sheltered. My poor friend mispronounced an item on the menu, and she ordered a vajayjay roll. And the waitress was all like, "I'm sorry, what did you order?" And she's like, "The vajayjay roll," and she's all like, "No, it's pronounced it's so not." And I was all like, "Can you imagine this poor waitress goes home like these four lesbians came in at our restaurant, and I've never forgotten it. And my poor friend was like mortified. It was hilarious. Like this woman like never came back to our table. Somebody else came in. Anyway, you said that you reminded me. Anyone else want to read it? Don't worry if there's overlap. Just the whole thing.
Big cunt, box, taco, pie, cookie, cat, kitty, coochie, clit, badge, cooter, tinker, hole, vagina.
Taco. A lot of food references.
Yeah.
Right? A lot for female anatomy, we get a lot of food references. Anyone else want to read their list? Don't worry about the overlap, just go for it.
Oh no, I feel like everything was said except for punani and.
Important to add. Anybody else? No? So again, we'll do this a few times. There is so much slang. We tend to be more comfortable with slang than we are with the actual terms. We're learning the actual terms here, but slang is very, very popular, right? My kids always called it pirates. My pirates hurt. I was like, "Your pirates? What are you talking about? Like, like what?" Like, my daughter would always be like, "My pirates are really bothering me." Like what? Privates. Got you. Okay. Pirates. So like now it's like this ongoing joke. They're 13 and 11 and they'll still be like, "My pirates hurt." I'm like, all right. So anyway, so internal structures. So when we look at internal ones, and a lot of you got these like perfect on your drawings, the vagina or the vaginal canal is a very strong like muscular canal. It plays a big role in intercourse, plays a big role in childbirth and delivery. For all of the stereotypes and norms and expectations about male penis size, the vaginal canal is 4 inches, right? Just to kind of put that in perspective. Now it can obviously stretch quite a bit to accommodate much more than that or allow much more than that out during childbirth and delivery. But it's a strong muscular canal that plays a big role in arousal, childbirth, intercourse, and so on. The cervix is the end of the uterus. Also plays a big role in like labor and delivery. And we'll talk about that more later, like the cervix being closed and starting to open and dilate is a big part of like delivery and the whole process of labor when we get to the unit on pregnancy. The uterus plays a big role in fetal development and also orgasm for women. So the uterus, right, big area where a baby would be growing, right, where a fetus or a baby would grow during pregnancy or more than one. But it also is an area that tends to contract during orgasm, causing the release of hormones, causing that pleasurable reaction. So it has a couple of different functions. The fallopian tubes, you can see that most women have 2, one on each side coming out of their ovaries. The ovaries is the spot where eggs mature. So eggs, each month a woman will have an egg that matures and is released from their ovary. It travels down the fallopian tube. So we could just say these play a big role in like carrying eggs. Also fertilization. When egg and sperm meet, they do so in the fallopian tubes. But most women, ovary on each side, right, will release like a mature egg once every month. We'll talk about that process more in a minute. Travels down the fallopian tube into the uterus. And if the pregnancy has occurred, if that egg implants into the uterine wall, then that cervix closes down, right, and it would open up 9 months later or so when that woman is ready to give birth. So all the kind of internal structures that work together for female anatomy. Yeah,
So like you're.
it's more like your uterus, actually, right? So the uterus can contract during cramping, it contracts during labor, and it also contracts during orgasm, right? So interestingly, it contracts at a lot of different times for different reasons. But that's typically the strong muscles in your uterus as it contracts to get that blood to release since pregnancy hasn't occurred. Any other questions for now? Anything else at the moment? Internal, external anatomy? Okay. So one of the big things that we'll talk about for female anatomy is the menstrual cycle or menstruation. Okay, so with men, we'll talk a lot about sperm production. That's a big process that men are constantly going through. For women, it's menstruation. And this is the discharge or the release of the built-up uterine lining that takes place if conception hasn't occurred. So every month or so, right, starting all the way like around, on average, of 11 and a half is about when the average girl will start getting their period for the first time. We call that menarche. The menarche is a critical phase. That is the first menstrual cycle that a young girl will have. Often very, very irregular in the beginning. And then menopause is the ending of menstruation. Okay, so for most women, we're talking about like a solid like 30 to 40 years of having a menstrual cycle roughly every month. Okay, now it's a 28-day cycle, but it tends to have an incredible amount of variability from one woman to another. And it can change throughout the course of your life as well. But every month, if there's no fertilized egg, right, to implant into the uterine wall, that lining that builds up is released in what we call a menstrual cycle or menstrual flow. So not as much slang here, but with your group again, slang for menstruation. Right, strain, so obviously period is like the most common one, right? But come up with, I'll give you like 1 minute, right? That's another really common one. So see if you can come up with any slang for menstruation. I'll just give you like a minute. There's not a lot. But write it down.
You're like shell red. I don't know, like one thing when they play the space that's just off. I see. That's how it's going. Yeah, still I'm fine.
The English have ended.
All right, what'd you come up with? Again, there aren't as many, but anyone have, like, give me one. Yeah, what do you got?
Sharkweed.
Sharkweed, right? Definitely, yeah.
Crime scene.
Crime scene, okay.
Oh, I'm so sad.
Really, that's funny, you know, yeah.
Yeah, that,
Yeah.
and also the Red Sea.
The Red Sea, okay.
When I first told my mom, I told her the volcanoes erupting.
The volcano, that's erupting, right? Okay, anybody else? I heard you guys say it before, yeah.
Said the English are coming.
The English are coming, that's funny. I saw Hamilton over there, right? I don't know why that reminded me, right? Anything else? Like, obviously, period, like, is probably, like I said, the most common one. Bunch of terms for this, not as many, this is something a lot of people don't, like, talk about a ton. Interestingly, the term menstruation, I wrote it up here, for you, comes from menses and mene, which means, menses means month, mene means moon, right? So it's like the lunar cycle. This is based loosely on the idea of like the 29.5-day lunar cycle, but the average menstrual cycle for most people is 28 days. Now, as I mentioned, there is an incredible amount of variety in this. Some women have very long and irregular menstrual cycles. Others, it's very short. It can be very long 1 month and short the next month. It can like have gaps in between, which can make it very difficult to get pregnant or avoid getting pregnant because you can use your menstrual cycle as a form of natural like childbirth or like prevention from getting pregnant if you wanted to, or to help you get pregnant if you wanted to. Yeah. Like I have manifested this so much. My dad used to tell us when we were kids, he used to be like, there's gonna be a month or a week out of the month where your mom isn't herself. Oh, don't be too worried about it. And my brother and I, when we were little, were like, what do you mean? Like, a werewolf? Like, what's gonna happen? He's like, just don't look her in the eye during that week, right? Like, and my brother and I were like, I don't get it. And then years later, when we were older, I was like, were you talking about your period? He's like, yeah, that's what it was, right? I was like, oh, dad, right? But like, so funny, just the funny ideas we have of like, thought you were a witch, right? And I thought my mom would turn into a werewolf every month, right?
Yeah, yeah. It's kind of weird because the second you say that, it's like there's kind of like this little thought that clicked in my mind, like, oh, that's why female werewolves suddenly make a reasonable amount of sense.
Okay. Why not, right? It's the right time of year for werewolves at least, right? So a lot is happening during the menstrual cycle. Okay, there are 4 phases. We'll talk about each of the 4. And this would be like a great like question on the exam, like what is happening in each phase, or like match the phase to the events that are in it. But I have a little video that kind of introduces this, and then we'll break it down and talk about it. But I think it's a helpful visual. A lot of different hormones being released, different changes in the body, causing different things to occur. So let me play the little video for you, and then we'll kind of break it down on this 28